Okay, we're here in Cuba, and we're going to tell you things we love about this place and things we don't like so much. Stay tuned. This video is about things I loved in Cuba. I just spent 5 days there on a vacation. I took my wife with me, and there were some things I absolutely loved. There were also some things that I hated about Cuba, but I'm going to put those in a separate video. You'll have to look for the link. Taking an old car. Now, we flew from Orlando straight to Havana. It was a short flight. As soon as we got off the plane and got our bag, we found a taxi, this classic car, an old Ford from the mid-50s, and we took a ride right into Old Town Havana. It was about 25 minutes, and that's likely where you'll stay, is Old Town Havana, where a lot of the hotels and restaurants are. First off, it goes without saying, the classic cars here in Cuba are even better than you can imagine. I knew there were classic cars here. I wanted to come down for years to see them, and they blew my mind. It's truly a living museum, unlike anything else in the world, and the charm that these classic cars bring to the town itself is over the top. There were two different instances where we actually hired a classic car to drive us once to the beach and once all around town. You can hire them for the whole day if you want. You're going to see cars from the 40s and 50s especially all over this town. 53. Here we are in the Revolution Plaza. One evening in a 53 Pontiac, we hired a driver. He took us all around town. You obviously stop along the way and get some pictures and enjoy yourself. And you can hire a driver. In fact, here's a tip for you. You can negotiate with them. A lot of times they'll start high and you can negotiate them down. I think in our case it was about $25 for an hour to an hour and a half ride. But these cars, we saw everything from Edsels. This was a Pontiac. One of the more beautiful cars I saw on the road was a 1960 Buick. Here is a Ford Fairlane that we hired to have a driver take us to the beach. These drivers are part of the tourism industry, and so that's what they do for a living. They don't let you drive the cars themselves, but the cars themselves are immaculate, and they look brand new. They've got beautiful paint jobs. The interior is fantastic. You're going to be disappointed if you look under the hood, because remember, with the U.S. embargo to Cuba that started in 1960, they haven't had access to car parts, and so they've had to use Frankenstein parts to keep these things running. So if you're a purist and look under the hood, you'll be disappointed. But other than that, these look amazing, and it was just so much fun. The only car I didn't find that I would have liked to have seen was a 50s era Corvette. I never saw one of those, and I don't think I saw a Studebaker either. But between the Edsels, the Ford Fairlanes, the old Cadillacs, I surely got my fill of classic cars over the week. Another thing to absolutely love about Havana, Cuba, is the architecture. It is gorgeous. All throughout the Old Town area especially, you're going to find some Baroque architectural styles, as well as some neoclassical styles like you saw with the Capitol building. But you're walking around town here, and there are times when I thought, oh, this reminds me of Buenos Aires, Argentina, or this reminds me of Barcelona, Spain. There's a lot of flair, a lot of personality, especially with the juxtaposition with the classic cars. It's really unique. And there's a couple different beautiful town squares as well that you're going to find. Now, to be fair, this is no Buenos Aires, Argentina, or Barcelona, Spain. I do have some issues with this place, and I go into those in my other video. But for the most part, you should know I did really like the architecture of Havana, Cuba. The food in Cuba, particularly at the nicer restaurants, the high-end places, was really quite amazing. We had a fantastic dinner here. Another restaurant, we had a rice dish that just was mind-blowingly good. There's some great barbecue dishes. Now, the food wasn't universally great everywhere you went. It wasn't like Italy, where every meal you have is just out of this world. But for the most part, on the higher end restaurants we went to, it was really impressive. We found a favorite gelato place that we kept going back to every night. And so you're going to eat well here, particularly if you're dining in some of the nicer establishments, and there's some great Cuban food and flavors. What you're not going to find here is a lot of selection on the lower end. You're not going to find a lot of fast food, or for that matter, any fast food restaurants, which you do find nowadays in many parts of the world. One of the advantages of Cuba, one of the things I've loved the most, is the cola. They have a special Coca-Cola here called Tu Cola right there. And delicious, kind of almost a mix between Coke and Dr. Pepper. It has a unique flavor, something unlike I've ever had before. And so I like it, my wife likes it. Tu Cola here in Havana, Cuba. Try Tu Cola today. As you might expect, the beaches in Cuba are tremendous. You have white sand, you have crystal clear water, and the amenities are good. They're not overbuilt. This is not like a Waikiki or in Hawaii where it's loaded with tourists and huge resorts. In fact, it could have been that way. Who knows, if the political history had been a little bit different, this probably would have been a developed area, because these beaches are just tremendous. The day we spent at the beach was probably our favorite day in Cuba. This particular one, Santa Maria, is about 25 minutes outside of Havana, so you do need to take a taxi, but it's absolutely worth it. Meanwhile, in Havana, you have what they call the Malecon. This is not a beach. They've built it up, and so it's a seawall, and there's a sidewalk that stretches along it for about 8 or 9 kilometers. So it's a place where you can come walk along in the evening time. The sun is setting behind you because Havana is on the north, and however, it's a place where you'll find some families walking along, couples, some fishermen, some people selling stuff to tourists, and the highway's right there, so you see a lot of the classic cars passing by you. Definitely a place to check out in the evening time right in the heart of Havana. One thing you gotta love about Cuba is the unique art scene. There are a lot of different artistic elements to Cuba, and none more so than you find on the weekend on this place, the Paseo del Prado, which is a divided highway right in the heart of Old Town Havana. And you come along here and there are all sorts of artists out. You see some children out here as well that are painting, and a lot of vendors selling their artwork. And you can come along here and just gaze at all of them. We actually bought this little painting of original artwork, which we thought would be great to add to our travel wall. But Cuba has just a lot of artistic flair to it, which is really neat. If you drive outside of town, you can come to this place. It's about a half-hour drive, and it's called Fusterlandia. And it's just a unique little neighborhood where a lot of the homeowners have crafted these mosaic tiles almost in the style of Gaudi, once again reminiscent of Barcelona, Spain. But a cool place to check out. A lot of art scene here in Cuba. I was also impressed with the souvenirs and crafts that you can buy in the stores in Old Town Havana. Just the handiwork, it was really impressive. Saves room in your suitcase because there's some cool stuff here, more so than many other places that I've been. So what's not to love about Cuba? After all, this place has beautiful beaches, has delicious food, there's some great souvenirs to buy, and the classic cars are out of this world. Well, before you book your next trip here, you're going to want to check out my other video. There are some things about Cuba you should know that might be a little disappointing. And so check it out, educate yourself before you come here. You should know Cuba is a delightful place, and there are many great reasons to come here, but there's two sides to this story.